please call the roll.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
Councilmember Mackin.
Present.
Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Canard.
Here.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Here.
Councilmember Petzko.
Here.
Councilmember Hazelbaker.
Here.
Councilmember House.
Here.
Mayor Kramer.
I'm here. We have a spot on our agenda now and at the end of the meeting for public comments. If anyone would like to address the council, they may do so now or at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, we'll move to our consent agenda. These are items that we consider to be routine. We'll take them in one motion unless someone up here or someone in the audience wants to be moved for further clarification. Tonight, we've got our minutes of April 8th, our closed session minutes of April 8th, Coldwater Public Library Advisory Board minutes from March 11, Coldwater Housing Commission minutes of March 12th, Historic District minutes of February 13th, BPU minutes of March, South Central Power Agency minutes of March 7th, BPU financial statements for February, our investment report for March of 2019, memo from me regarding a couple of board appointments, and a letter from Paige Pater, Michigan State University Research Technician. Those are the items on our consent agenda. Would anyone up here like anything removed? Anybody in our audience? See, now we look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Second.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 11, bills and accounts, $116,742. Questions from any council members? Again?
Move to pay the bills.
A motion, we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 12, city manager report. Keith.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, council, everyone. First and foremost, we want to recognize Ed Partial. He's retired from the Coldwater Fire Department as a part-paid firefighter, and he had over 39 years with the department. So we appreciate his service to the community and want to recognize that long service and the compliments that were forwarded on behalf of Mr. Partial from Chief Schmaltz. I'd like to thank him for his service to the community and the Coldwater Fire Department. Secondly, we have ProMedica Coldwater Regional Hospital. They're bringing in approximately 150 employees over the next month to do some training, and we wanted to welcome them to the community. We're working with the chamber, and the chamber is reaching out to welcome them to Coldwater as well. And we just want to hopefully entice them to come check out the community and downtown in particular. So we welcome the employees from ProMedica Coldwater Regional Hospital over the next month. The lofts at Mills Plaza, that's the 50-unit, 4-story apartment complex and the reconstruction of the Mills Plaza parking lot. That's scheduled to get underway in mid-May. They'll take approximately 1 year to complete. The project will include repairs and replacement of water, sanitary, sewer, electric, and storm. Those things are actually the subject of a bid approval later in the council packet. C.D. Hughes of Charlotte, Michigan was the low bidder for the Jefferson Street Utility and Road Reconstruction Project. This is an MDOT bid project, so they take the low bidder. And initial indications are that the bid itself is 2% less than the engineering estimate. MDOT is going through each one of the bids that were received to make sure that they meet all the specifications. And Fishbeck is working on our behalf as the engineer for this project. And the project is scheduled to begin next month. And we have actually on Friday a pre-construction meeting, after which I'll know a little bit more about the timing of it. But there again, the idea with that particular project, it's the reconstruction of South Jefferson from US 12 south to Park Street. And hopefully the majority of the work will occur between the car show and swap meet on Mother's Day and be completed by the fair in August. With spring finally here, we think downtown cleanup is underway. Hopefully you may have noticed if you've been around that the parking lots have been cleaned up, spruced up, mulched, and there'll be additional work that will take place downtown, all anticipation of the various community projects that are going to take place: walk a mile, car cruise, Memorial Day ceremony and parade, the community or the Coldwater High School graduation, senior walk, and Strawberry Fest are all activities that are going to take place over the next 2 months. So we try to make a special point of keeping downtown looking its best during this period of time. In addition, the actual Chandler parking lot landscaping will be starting here in the next couple of weeks. The contractor has notified us that the plantings have been ordered and are arriving, and they hope to start here in the next week or two. And so that'll look that much better over time, and that hopefully will address some of the drainage issues that we have over there subsequent to the end of the construction last fall. There again, Walk a Mile is this coming weekend, Saturday, April 27th. Lots of activities taking place that day, so look to them for dates and times and of the various activities. The youth ball field ribbon cutting is Friday, May 17th. We're inviting everyone. Hopefully you can make it to Friday, May 17th to our celebration to recognize the opening of the new baseball and softball fields out on North Shore Drive. And refreshments will be provided for that. Yard waste continues. The special yard waste week that we had a week ago went well, we think, but now we want to make sure that everyone knows that it's back to paper bags. So brush pickup is the first week of each month until October, and we pick up paper bags weekly. One of the things that we get most frequently this time of year are code enforcement complaints, either someone complaining about their neighbor or complaining about how we enforce it. So we just want to make note that it's that time of year. Temperatures and moisture are going to be good this week, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of grass growing. So we're just reminding those that grass is to be kept at 6 inches or less, keeping yards free of litter and junk, and indoor furniture indoors, not outdoor porches. And there again, with the dry weather prior to just recently, we were, through the fire department and through our Facebook accounts, we're trying to make sure that people were aware of the open burning rules within the community. And with that, that's all I have.
Thanks. Question for Keith?
Just a quick one, Keith. Look at the burning. Fire pits are not allowed.
So you can have a recreational fire, and that's defined in the ordinance, and essentially if you're roasting marshmallows or a hot dog and you're keeping it under control, that you can have that, unless it becomes either by what you're burning or the size. If it becomes a threat or a nuisance to your neighbors, they could call it in. But in essence, you can have those chimereas, you can have those porch or patio, little recreational fires, but just to be aware of that, given that, you could still be asked to put it out if it becomes a nuisance or a danger to joining structures.
I believe it's supposed to be 10 feet more away from the structure. It's got to be enclosed.
There are some rules.
There's
25 feet.
Is it 25?
25 feet, and then an extinguishing agent, usually preferably a hose. And then again, you want it to be 3 feet round, no higher than 3 feet.
Dave?
I'm sorry.
Has that policy been updated? Was that recently?
It should be right on the website. So yeah, again, just so everybody can hear me.
So repeat that, Chief.
Yeah, 25 feet away from the structure. We want some sort of extinguishing agent there, whether a bucket of water or a hose, preferably a hose. And then no more than 3 feet around and no more than 3 feet high, and that's even a little bit on the higher side. And just as Keith says, if it causes any type of discomfort or smoke or stuff that it bothers neighbors, then we'll have to come over and put it out. And it has to be, can't burn, leaves, can't burn grass clippings, or
Garbage.
yeah, garbage, or construction material. It has to be just, normal firewood. So
I'm just curious, and the reason why is because I had time right to go over the policy years back. It was actually Gary Chester, and fire rings for a while weren't allowed, and then they were allowed, and I I have that policy somewhere now, that's probably how many years old. But it sounds like the policy has changed again. You know how long, is this, that's what I'm asking, has this changed in the last year or two, or do you know?
No.
Not that I know of.
It's not something you changed, you're going off of the old?
Yeah, and it's gonna be something basically outlined in NFPA, this is what we're following. But there's right on the website, there's actually I believe if you go to the fire department website, on the right-hand side, I believe it's the third one down, there's a form right there that's a pamphlet that explains exactly what you can and can't do as far as recreational fires.
And that's ordinance, or is that policy, or?
Even looking at it right now, I believe.
No, that's by ordinance, and that ordinance, it looks like the last time in which it was dated was 1995, so.
So that's what I'm already, okay.
But primarily 25 feet away from the structure, water available to douse it, and 3 foot in diameter, and no more than 3 foot high, and basically wood or other. Would you define what you can burn? I mean, charcoal? I mean, is it?
Oh, yeah, the charcoal would be like your normal cooking fire.
And we've heard this thing about the roasting marshmallow. Somebody has to have a hot dog on a stick in the ground. I mean, is that really a criteria, or you just have to comply with those other things to sit around a campfire in an appropriate location?
I believe you don't have to have that. I think back in the early 90s when we first introduced this, that was kind of the marching orders we were given in the department, that that's what they had to have, but we're not gonna.
Right.
Just have
It makes for a way to describe.
Primarily, you don't want people burning brush or leaves in their yard. That's probably the primary.
Right. And what we catch, we'd have people trying to do that, but then they'd say we have marshmallows.
Right.
Yeah, it's just not good.
We just ask residents to be good neighbors and use common sense.
I think it's been good conversation. Any other questions? Do you have any questions, follow-up?
No, other than that, just get a copy of the ordinance.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Chief. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Keith on the city manager report?
Yeah.
We're looking then for, we're looking for a motion to approve the city manager report.
Motion to approve, Mayor. Support.
We have a motion, we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Number 13 is a memo from Jeffrey W. Budd regarding authorization to issue and sell electric system revenue bonds.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, City Council. In front of you is a resolution of the notice of intent that we intend to potentially sell bonds in order to finance our butter substation. The notice of intent also has a part of that is also a resolution for reimbursement. So that allows us that we incur expenses before we actually were to sell bonds. That those bonds will be used to reimburse us, like for engineering, for the purchase of the lots of the property. Obviously, it's for $6.5 million. We have no intentions at all of ever spending $6.5 million. The reason we do it is we always set that amount higher than what we think the engineer's estimate is. That's true with all of our bonds that we've ever done. That just sets the case that we were to have something go over, we have some flexibility that we don't have to keep coming back, because there is a right of referendum for 45 days for the public that if somebody were to challenge us or say, hey, we don't feel there's a necessity for these bonds, we could go back, and we won't have to keep going back to get those things, go through the whole process again. Again, the project is roughly about $5 million is what we're planning on spending on the bonds. But again, it's also one of those things we're not sure if we'll even pay it out of cash. We're looking at a couple different things. Tom and I are looking at various ways. But this just says a not to exceed. Any debt that we were to incur, I'm going to make this perfectly clear, has to come back before the city council as well as the VP board before we borrow any. This does not give us the authority to borrow any money. This just sets that process in motion that allows us to, we're giving a notice to the intent to sell those bonds. So if there's any questions, again, any debt would have to come back before the council and the board before we sell any bonds at all. So, but by that time, we will have the engineer's estimates, we'll have bids done, so before we actually go out and sell those bonds.
And what is the necessity? You define what you're doing, but why are you doing it?
So the electrical substation, one of the things we're going to be able to do is once the new third line comes into the new substation there on Jonesboro Road, We will then be able to move some load that is on Garfield Road. That load will now be able to be shed and put onto where we're looking at putting on Butters Road. So we'll be able to actually take some of our industrial load because we're really getting a lot of the reliability and improve the reliability. It also will impact a little bit of the load. Right now, if we take load off of, if something trips off on Garfield substation, it will trip something at Bennett Street. So this will actually have another substation where we can actually shed the load or move the load more equitably to that area. So.
Everyone, so.
Yeah, it really improves the reliability because right now we only have just 3 substations, and this will just move that load around a little bit.
I thought we're out there, I'm sure you're getting all kinds of criticism because of power outages and everything. Would this be something that would help with that so that you're not taking too much of load?
Again, just to clarify, the outages that we've had, they were because we're doing some maintenance down at the substation. It's a 1950s, so this is one reason why we take some of that load off of Bennett substation, is because it is very old equipment. So again, the total outages with those, there was 2 of them, but the total was about 22 minutes for both outages combined. The outage prior to that was actually a squirrel and or a raccoon. So again, we'll never be able to stop those.
No, and it's unfortunate that you guys get the criticism you do.
We do. And again, every time the power goes out, it's always inconvenient, so it's never a good time, and we understand that. So, but this will definitely make things a little bit easier if there was a problem. So it also gives us the ability to add more load if the greenhouse were to add more electricity needs, or if AC start and those type of things. There's some other things electrically that can improve the reliability for those industrial customers as well.
How close are we to that third line coming in?
They are supposed to start that sometime this summer. They're hoping to have that done in second quarter of 2020 at the latest. We're hoping it's done sooner rather than later.
Questions for Jeff? We're looking for a motion to either adopt or not adopt Resolution 1923.
Motion to adopt, number 1923.
Support.
We have a motion, we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Number 14, a letter from Keith Baker regarding Paid Medical Leave Act. Keith?
Thank you, Your Honor. So with the passage of Public Act 369 in 2018, towards the end of the last lame duck session of the last legislature, this public act applies to Michigan employers, and for those employers with part-time employees, if those employees average 25 hours per week over the course of a year, they are now eligible for paid medical leave. And so we have 2 employees that are eligible under that definition, and currently, not that we couldn't have more or less in the future, but this then puts in place the policy by which they would receive those hours. There are 2 ways in which you can allocate that. You can allocate it in a lump sum, or you can allocate it prorated over the year. We're choosing to do it as a lump sum just for tracking and ease of administration. This similar policy was passed just last week by the board, Coldwater Board of Public Utilities, and we would just ask your approval of Resolution 1901, or Policy 1901, setting forth that policy for providing paid medical leave to employees that average over 25 hours per week.
Questions, comments?
So this would be effective immediately, not retroactive, so going forward.
Correct. We're putting the 40 hours in place for the 2 employees that currently meet that standard or threshold of having already met 24 hours over the prior 12 months. Yeah.
Other questions? Keith is looking for, in compliance with state law, I believe, Keith is looking for adoption of a motion to adopt policy 1901.
Move to adopt policy 19-01.
I support the motion.
Final discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 15, letter from Keith Baker regarding the MEDC CDBG required policies and plans. Keith?
Thank you, Your Honor. Lots of acronyms and a lot of information, but the majority of which you've already actually seen previously, but we've assembled it into a singular packet because of the revolving loan fund and updating this information. So the city administers a revolving loan fund. That revolving loan fund was established with federal funds through the Community Development Block Grant Program. That program is administered by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and to meet those requirements in having those funds and administering those funds, in this case under the revolving loan fund for business and industrial loan making, we need to have a certain set of policies and plans in place, all of which we've had in place for different grants in the past. Two examples are the Kerr redevelopment project. We received federal funds through MISTA and MEDC in that case, as well as the Clemens infrastructure project. And so because they are federal funds, you have to have policies in place that address certain issues. Those include the Americans with Disabilities Act, fair housing, excessive force policy, anti-discrimination, anti-relocation. So in the event that you were to acquire someone's property, you're not forcibly removing them. There's a process by which you would compensate to have them relocated. Procurement, how you acquire that service or item or project. And then a participation plan, the means by which the community can provide feedback. So all of these were necessary in bringing up to date our eligibility for an administration of our revolving loan fund. And so I'm seeking your approval of Resolution 1921 to adopt all of those plans that are thereby attached that I just referenced, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Questions? If not, we're looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 1921.
Move to adopt Resolution 1921.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Number 16, letter from Keith Baker regarding MDOT local bridge program for South Clay Street Bridge Repair Project. Keith.
Thank you, Your Honor. Among the litany of letters that I don't believe is going to get any shorter in the coming weeks and months, but this is an application essentially to seek funding through MDOT for the next bridge that we had identified as being eligible for replacement, and that is the South Clay Street Bridge. We had applied a couple years ago and were not selected, and so we are now reapplying to be considered for the 2022 construction season. The actual construction funding for this would be a 90-10 match, by which the city would be on the hook for 10%, which, as estimated in the resolution, would be approximately $18,000. But what we also prepay is for engineering, which is a much more substantial cost. We've got kind of plugged in at about $100,000 for the actual engineering. So if you think about it as a nearly $500,000 project, we have just over 20% or about $118,000 into it, and we get about a $344,000 grant from it. This is similar to the project or program that replaced the South Jefferson Bridge a couple of years ago. So we're just looking to get in the queue now for the next bridge when funding becomes available.
Okay. Questions? If not, motion to adopt Resolution 1922 is requested.
So move, Your Honor.
Support.
Taking a guess, or how are you doing that? I don't think you had a clue. We have motion, we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. 17, letter from Keith regarding the Allen Avenue reconstruction engineering contract. Keith.
Another project that we've planned for and is nearing proceeding with is the Allen Avenue reconstruction. We received a grant through MDOT in the amount of $169,000 to now facilitate that. And we're looking to do the engineering work for that, which is our part of the match for the project, in addition to some of the construction costs. With the engineering and with our portion of the construction cost, it comes out to about a 50-50 match. The professional services agreement would be with C2AE in the amount of $45,100, and we're seeking your approval for Resolution 1924 for the engineering services for the reconstruction of Allen Avenue in the amount of $45,100 and authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign.
Budgeted, I assume.
It is from the state, yes, from Act 51 funds, street funds, and of course we've discussed it as part of the application to MDOT for the project initially.
Questions for Keith? Now, we again would like adoption of Resolution 1924 if we're so inclined.
Move to adopt 1924.
Randall?
Support.
We have a motion, we have support. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Number 18, letter from Keith Baker regarding the Henry L. Brown Municipal Building Bid Award. Keith?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yet another project we've talked about for a couple of years, and we're finally getting to that point with the condition of the parking lot just outside this building. And we took 2 bids on it. We sought additional bids and received 2. One from Excel Paving of Coldwater and one from Belson Asphalt of Reading. Belson Asphalt was the low bidder by about $1,095 in the amount of $35,250, and Excel Paving was the next lowest bidder, or the second bidder, at $36,345. This is something that we are building into the budget for the 1920 fiscal year. So if you were to approve this, this is part of what the budget will include that we talked about in the workshop. This would be split equally between the BPU and the city sides, and if you so desire or choose, we're looking for your approval of the bid. The one difference here being, given the difference, you do have the discretion of going with a local bidder, over the lowest bidder. We've had that discussion a couple different occasions when the 2 bids are in relatively small margin difference. The actual parking lot itself, this building, I believe, opened up in 2002, so when you think about the construction and the time in which we've occupied it, it's nearing 18 years old, and time to replace the parking lot.
May I expand on that? Also, if I saw it right, the asphalt that Excel's putting down is actually a thicker coating, like about 1 inch thicker, I believe.
The way the 2 of them measured up the quantities, there is a difference. I think you end up getting the same product because you have to get to that point. But the way they've measured it and the way they've priced it out, they are showing that it's going to be a half-inch difference, and they also have a little bit of larger quantity compared to what the low bidder had. They built in a larger amount of quantity than what the low bidder had.
18 years seems a bit short for a parking lot. Everybody's agreeing that it needs to be replaced and needs to be rebuilt.
Because if we were to just do a mill and fill, talking with the contractors, that's just going to reflect back up through any cracks that exist are going to reflect back up. We have had some settling. The DMS crews are going to work on the catch basin that's in the corner of the parking lot. We're going to do that in-house, and then have the contractor come in. We've put it off for a couple of years.
During construction work, people park.
What's that?
So during construction work, people got parked.
So on what would be the south end of this building, we have Randall parking lot, and we also have some street parking on Grand Street.
I guess my question is, are we inclined to go contractor or Hillsdale.
Have you used the one you know before?
They what?
Have we used the other kind?
We have not, but a couple local references that have used them are Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, which uses them for all their asphalt projects, and the apartments at Sauk Trail. The new parking lot out there, they utilize that contractor for that.
Pleasure, folks.
Your Honor, I'll make the motion, given that we do have that discretion, I will make the motion that we go with the local contractor, being that we have that discretion, it's within 3%, and award it to Excel.
Do we have support for that motion?
I support that.
From Scott. Any other discussion before we vote? See how this goes. We may have to have a roll call vote, but all in favor of awarding the bid to Excel Paving, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Motion carried. Number 19, letter from Keith Baker regarding the Mills Plaza parking lot reconstruction project bid.
Thank you, Your Honor. One last project for the evening. This would be for our portion of the utilities to replace the underground utilities for the Mills Plaza infrastructure project in conjunction with the lofts at Mills Plaza apartment project. This is in the amount of $125,890 from Parish Excavating. Our engineer, in this case CEI, had solicited one. We advertised publicly for the bids, and then we also specifically invite ones that we hope will bid to make sure that they're aware of it. We received only one bid. This bidder is also the one that we anticipate will be the excavation site contractor for the apartments as well, so they had a competitive advantage. And in talking with bidders in general, their schedules are starting to fill up, and so I think that has something that's a reflection of why we received one bid. One, because they already had a leg up with the developer, and two, schedules are starting to fill up. But this is within the budgeted amount that was anticipated or estimated by the city's engineer. It is within what we have left for the parking lot fund. We're using funds both from the BPU and from the bond fund, the unused from what the Chandler parking lot remnants are, and that's and so we're seeking your approval so that they can move ahead, as we discussed earlier, that they want to move ahead here in May to begin the construction of the parking lot and apartment complex.
Okay. Last time tonight, questions? They're looking for a motion to adopt resolution 1926.
Motion to adopt resolution 1926.
Support. Motion with support. Any final questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. The last spot on our agenda for public comment. If anyone would like to address the council, they may do so now. Unfinished business at council level? New business at council level? I would like to ask Chief Bartel to maybe come up, and I'm sure council will have some more articulate questions than I do, but this issue on we're having in a certain neighborhood that's been in the limelight lately, I guess. I'd like to hear your opinion on what would help your officers avoid or correct these kind of problems. Are there things we can do in terms of ordinances or laws to help your officers respond to these types of neighborhood issues?
Well, the laws we currently have in place have served us quite well. If it comes down to issues such as noise, if there are individual complaints reference vehicles, then the officers have to backtrack the particular vehicle if it's not related to the residents. And usually we have to find it and follow up on that noise ordinance or that noise from the vehicle under a traffic citation. Or the vehicle's got to be on the roadway to follow through on the traffic. If a car's sitting in the driveway and you're tuning it up and the exhaust is loud, you're continuing to make excessive noise there, then that can be addressed through our noise ordinance, which is situational in nature and primarily depending on a couple of things that have to do with, it's best to give you for instance. You work midnights and your neighbor mows his lawn at 9 in the morning and his mower is 10 feet from your window, then if you don't particularly want a noise ordinance would be particular to that situation if the neighbor did that as a nuisance on purpose, so to speak, if you could prove that. And that oftentimes comes through conversation. But generally, we consider noise ordinances after 11 o'clock in the evening. If someone's playing music in the summer or when it can be heard elsewhere, then we can address that. Over the years, we've used a common tool that we use is an officer, if they can hear the noise to their ear excessively at the curb, then we can generally consider it to be heard in the neighborhood, at the neighbor's house within 25 or 50 feet. And of course that depends on how far back the setback is of the house, and so it becomes situational there as well. But generally, our experience with the noise ordinance is if we go and talk to the neighbors, we have success. People turn their music down and we can resolve that. On the other occasions, we have what we call house parties, where we roll up and about half the occupants run away because they're underage, and the other persons that are there, we try to take and usually we enforce that noise ordinance by appropriate citations for underage drinking or providing alcohol to underage or something along that line. The noise ordinance goes away because of the alcohol enforcement that occurs. So oftentimes when you look at ordinances that control noise, we really boils down to the officer making a detailed report and providing it back to the city attorney, and then we can look over the ordinance and see where it falls. And oftentimes the difficulty arises there with timing and the nature of the noise. I'll give you another for instance. It's Sunday after about noon, and I decide to trim a tree in my backyard with a chainsaw. Is that a noise violation or not? If you go downtown, a semi goes through town decibelly, very loud. But would we normally consider a violation of the noise ordinance? No, based upon location. So noise ordinance normally goes to a residential setting. Big football game, Friday night, you hear the crowd from multiple blocks away, right? We normally don't consider that a noise violation. So it really boils down to specifically to the nature of the noise, the nature of the intent of the noise, and the timing of the noise. Right now, our ordinance does not measure decibel levels in general. If you may recall, a number of years ago, we had a number of cars driving around town with loud speakers in the back, and boom speakers. And at the time, we tried to look at the possibility of measuring decibel levels for that. And it was very difficult because we would stop the car downtown, obviously noticeable by when the car drove by, but when you try to measure decibel levels, you got ambient noise from other street traffic, and you couldn't identify that the noise from that particular vehicle was reached a certain decibel level and was able to provide some level of proof. So then that became oftentimes those tickets came down to how far away and how often, and demonstrating, basically describing those situations to the court, and the judge would evaluate the information provided by the officer and the person driving the vehicle, and we could follow through with that. If it might mean as much as, I remember getting a call once where sound vibrated the windows on my store. I thought that was probably excessive loudness. I said, what else vibrates windows on your store when a semi drives by? So we had some difficulty proving those violations. They're not always easy ones. I guess the best way to put it is the vast majority of the time we get resolutions of conversation, and then the rest of the time we try to drill down to exactly what the problem is at the time, the date, the location. That's reference noise. If you want to talk about other, if you have any other question on other ordinance violations.
Yes, Chris, you've been bearing the brunt of these complaints. Do you have, that help, does that clarify? I know you were told, or an officer told the person that, talk to your council person, that we need more ordinance.
Yeah, that's what I heard, and I didn't hear it from the officer, so. But, yeah, it came to me when one of the officers said, contact your council person and see if there can be some teeth put into these noise ordinances, and there's further conversation about, the resident looked up, the noise ordinance for Ann Arbor and found there were times in it. I know we're not Ann Arbor, but noise is noise. And I thought that another officer indicated that would help them greatly in, taking care of this. You mentioned the windows rattling. Some of these cars coming are rattling the windows at 2 in the morning. And
well, I think we could all, many years like these neighborhoods, we can, common sense would tell you that the stereo turned up in the car as you pull in, and as the car gets turned off within a reasonable amount of time, okay, that's the guys driving home trying to wait for midnight shift, trying to stay awake. On the other hand, if the car's sitting out there for an hour, I'm being exaggerating here, obviously that wouldn't qualify in a residential neighborhood as a breach of the peace. Okay? But here's what oftentimes happens, and to help you understand how the officers interact with citizens. The citizens will come to us and they ask us about ordinances all the time and how it affects their life. And so oftentimes what we do is we get a copy of the ordinance and provide it to them at their request so they can read through it and try to come to understanding of that ordinance. There's other times they'll say, well, how come you can't do something right now? And we'll say, our ordinance gives us these limitations or this specific data that we can go by. And if you have an ordinance that's situational in nature, which ours is to a certain degree, then oftentimes the person say, I don't know who's saying, the concerned citizen or the officer, or they say, I don't know if our ordinance would cover that. But there are many times that we encourage citizens to contact you, believe it or not. And it's designed because sometimes they're not sure if they're getting accurate information from the officer, for one. Two, they want to talk about, well, if you can't enforce that parking on that particular time and place, who do I talk to get that changed? And I suggest they contact me first, or my officers, contact the city manager, and if they aren't, but they have the right to automatically go to you folks. I keep all your names and numbers on the desk.
We appreciate it, Chief.
But the idea is to try to foster their communication. I had a call the other day about from a citizen who wanted to talk about a 2 to 6 a.m. ordinance, and I forwarded the information to City Manager Baker, and I anticipated that they indicated they'd like to talk to council about 2 to 6 a.m. ordinances, and generally it's valid. And so that's oftentimes the process, but it wouldn't make sense, one thing wouldn't make sense to me for an officer to suggest to citizens that, hey, we hate the ordinance too, so we'll get it checked. That's something that if there truly is a problem with that ordinance under that nature, they should run that through their supervisor, run that up to what we call the chain of command, and I would bring that information to folks to discuss.
How do you deal with multiple, same thing? Multiple times you talk to them and then it's fine.
Some of our ordinances,
how does that work?
Some of our ordinances have first, second, third offenses. Say if you issued a citation and it says second time you've issued it, it would escalate the fine. But generally, a lot of our ordinances are, say it happens today and it happens a month later. We're talking two distinct incidents. So we go to look for garbage or refuse complaint, and the people comply. Yep, they clean up the trash. A week later, we get called again because they've got new trash. That starts over again. Now, if we gain a conviction or non-compliance, we might look at a second or third offense, depending on what the ordinances usually has very specific language, and you can boost from one level to another, is that your experience, maybe? And like that. The second thing we do oftentimes is try to find some way, well, are you willing to talk to your neighbor? Are we willing to, can we find a peaceful resolution? And oftentimes that falls under what we call community policing 101, communication with each other. A lot of our problems don't have an answer in ordinance. A lot of them have an answer in collaboration and talking things over. That's not always possible. Sometimes the reason people call us is because maybe they don't have, they don't feel comfortable in communication, or they feel ill at ease talking to their neighbor because they don't know them well, or something like that. So that's up to the officer at that point to try to mediate that as best they can. If they can't mediate it, and of course if there's a clear or obvious ordinance violation in front of you, then we should take action. We get ordinance violations in multiple ways. A lot of them get called directly to neighborhood services, and a lot of them come to us. And in our case, our enforcement officer for neighborhood services also sworn police officer, serves a dual purpose.
Questions for the chief? You've been doing this a long time. I mean, is our ordinance, do we have a need to find a better noise ordinance, or is it more going to create more problems than it solves, or what's just your opinion? Do we have a lacking in our ordinance?
What I would recommend is what we normally do when we want to review of the ordinance to get the job done or not, is we don't try to reinvent the wheel. We go look around and see if there are other ordinances. I mean, we can get on the chief's listserv, the city manager's listserv, or talk to other communities we know, and see if there is language that can tweak our ordinance. For instance, if you remember several years ago, we made a pretty significant change to our disorderly ordinance reference panhandling, aggressive behavior. Primarily because we had a statutory change that they put certain requests of if I come up and ask money for it, that's free speech. So we adjusted our ordinance, and we got that language from a couple other communities, and we were able to then adjust our disorderly ordinance to follow the state ruling, the case law, and make it easier for the officers to understand what they could enforce and what they couldn't enforce. So I'm not prepared to say that our ordinance is ineffective, but they're mostly effective. My biggest problem, or not a problem, whenever I look at an ordinance change, I try to look at throwing a pebble into the pond. What's the ripple effect? Because ultimately, do our citizens feel like we're too big brother or not big brother enough? And oftentimes that's situational in nature. Because oftentimes I show up, knock on the door, and people say, what do you want? And inside, when I say me, the officer. We don't want you here, you can leave. Okay? Because they think that we're an intrusion. So we have to have the probable cause to go up there and ask in case of orders. A reasonable suspicion that there's crime afoot. And so I never can see a problem in reviewing our current ordinance and look at other ordinances and see if there's any material in there that we might be able to improve our ordinance or tighten it up and then give the council a chance to read through that material in the future.
Do we have a general nuisance? I thought there was one where when you do a repeat offender of multitude different offenders, they're in a house party, won't cut their grass, they've got junk parked in front of there becomes a point where the city can take action after them. There's a general nuisance, kind of like a drug house or something like that.
There's state statute that references what we used to call an ordinance that says that you can't maintain a house of illegal activity. Okay? I don't think our ordinance calls for that. At the time, of course, that was probably a state law. But for instance, if we go back to have repeated one is pretty easy for us, raw garbage. We can go directly to a 24-hour notice on that due to the health risk. And say, the next day you got raw garbage, the next day you got raw garbage. And then we can move to immediately to look for an abatement, where the city can step in and clean that up and put it back on the tax roll. And on the other hand, if I have a minor violation and where I can cite them each day while I'm waiting for them to fix that. The court's given me pretty clear instruction in the past. I don't want 5 tickets for the same thing. Okay? Take them to task on one ticket, give them a ruling, and then we can move forward. So, and like I said, some ordinances are very clear when you can escalate to second, third offense, but those usually require a clear path of either conviction for first offense, and then go to the second level for the second offense, where the fine increases. Does that help?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief? Yeah. Thank you. Any other new business at council level? If not, we will adjourn to the budget session in the back of the room. Adjourn.
All right.